What is going on, Brave Exvius players? Today we're tackling the new enhanced units, Elephim, Esther, and Sylvie. This is going to be available on a banner for you guys if you do indeed want to get your second copy or so to use them in today's meta. A lot of these guys on this banner, Elephim, Esther, and Sylvie, part of this batch, are some of the most long-awaited ability awakenings in Brave Exvius, so we're going to tell you guys whether or not you should be awakening them whatsoever, and if so, why. So let's tackle this right now. Let's start with the first unit on the banner, on the list, is actually going to be Elephim. Elephim is going to be a powerful buffer and breaker type character. If you're looking for that specifically, she's going to be right up your alley for you. So let's skip on down to her ability awakenings. Down here, her first one is going to be a nice buff, and it's also going to be the ability for you to add light element to your party. So this one, the fairies Gavate, whatever it's going to be called, it's going to no longer be a song, so it's not going to lock her out of her skills, but it's still going to apply its buff for 3 turns here. The buff is still dispellable, but it's going to auto cast 2 turns after you activate. It's going to have like an automatic cast at the start of your turn. That way, in case it gets dispelled, it's going to be reapplied. That can help you guys out there in the long run. It's going to be a 180% attack defense, magic, and spirit buff for your whole party, and then it's also going to add light element to your attacks every turn for the next 3 turns. So that's something that you can do there. It's going to be 3 turns total light and view, whether or not it gets dispelled or doesn't get dispelled. That's just how her stuff works. It's always going to last at least 3 turns for you. Even if it gets dispelled, it's going to be reapplied. It's also going to give her a little bit of limit burst gauge that'll help her do her limit burst as well. So if you're looking for a way to imbue your party with light, that's going to be something that she's going to be able to do for you, aside from just the traditional buffs and breaks in her kit. Now, talking about buffing and breaking, we have the Passionate Fugue here. Now, this is going to be a 200% attack and magic buff, all right, and a 75% defense and spirit break. It's also going to have a little bit of MP refresh attached to it for you there, and just like her other songs, it's going to give Elephim a little bit of LB gauge to gain access to her limit burst every turn. So this is something that you're going to be using to buff up the offensive side of your party. The next one, the Spiritual Rondo, is going to be the opposite. This is going to be used to buff up the defensive side of your party. It's going to increase the defense and spirit of your allies by 200% for the grand total of 3 turns. Works just like all of her other buffs. No longer songs, auto cast in case they get dispelled, always going to last at least 3 turns for you. The other part is going to be a break for attack and magic, 75%. So very strong buffs, very strong breaks, and then instead of MP regen on this song, it's going to have HP regen, also applying the auto cast part of the LB gauge increase for Elephim. So she's going to be able to get a lot of LB gauge increase to fire off her limit burst eventually down the line. Now, her other ones that she has access to, we have Healing Fragrance. This is going to reduce the cooldown from whatever it was before, very lengthy cooldown. It's going to be an 8-turn cooldown available on turn 8. It's going to be a full HP and MP restoration to your party. She's not a healer. She doesn't really have any other healing outside of this and the HP and MP regens, but it is a way for her to heal at least 1 turn in a long fight for you. So that could be something that you would use. A lot of you guys might skip on it, but it's very cheap, so might as well awaken it. All the other stuff we talked about, you're going to awaken all of those songs because it's what makes Elephim's awakenings strong in the little niche that she has access to. Now, Magical String Musician is going to just make her tankier, right? It's going to give her HP and MP 70%, defense and spirit 30%. When equipped with an instrument, you're going to get this, you're going to be using this. Now, Marvelous Queen is an awakening that you can do here as well. Take this to +2. It's going to enhance her defense and spirit as well as HP and MP. 50% defense and spirit, 40% HP and MP. Increase your resistance to silent, sleep, confusion, disease, and petrify, as well as stop. 100% high tide, and it's going to buff up her limit burst gauge to an upgraded version, which is the Marvelous Queen +2 version, the Queen's Pastoral, which is going to be a 75% attack defense, magic, and spirit break for 4 turns to all enemies, and a 200% attack defense, magic, and spirit buff for 4 turns to all allies, and this buff cannot be dispelled. And then it's going to heal HP and MP by 50% for all allies, and enables Rainbow Wings Glissando +2 for 1 use to the caster, which is going to allow you to, I do believe, allow you to dual cast magic if you want to go ahead and do that. It also is going to do an HP and MP heal over time and it's also going to be a 170% magic and spirit buff. So not the greatest song in the whole world there. She already has HP and MP restoration. She already has a better attack and magic buff, or magic and spirit buff. She's got way better buffs than this 170%, especially considering you just buffed your whole party by 200% from the limit burst itself. So you won't be using Rainbow Wings, Glissando all that often, or the dual cast effect all that often. So she's a very simple unit. If you're looking for somebody that's a support that has big buffs for you and big breaks for you at the same time, she's going to fill that role quite well for you. That being said, there's a lot of other supportive aspects to a support nowadays, right? We have general mitigation, physical mitigation, magic mitigation, allowing you to chain with different partners. She doesn't do any of that stuff. She does have the breaks, she does have the buffs, and she does have the light in view. So those are the three main things she's bringing to your party. She has the big emergency heal on turn 8. Then outside of that, she's got the little bit of HP and MP regen. So a lot of you guys out there might fit her right into your party. She might do really well for you if you already have the general mitigation and the physical magical mitigation covered. Then you're gonna be able to slot Elephim right into your party if you need that. But she doesn't do any of the new stuff, right? No mirages or anything of that nature for your party. So that's gonna be something you're gonna have to think about there. Now let's talk about the one everyone's here for, Esther. Should you even bother enhancing Esther? How good is she now? How? TLDR. She's actually pretty garbage. So let's go over this right here, and let's talk about exactly why she's not that great with her enhancements, and hopefully what she's going to get maybe with her latent abilities, because they kind of really did her pretty injustice here, and sometimes characters just get the short end of the stick. So let's talk about Esther. We all know Esther. She's here for the big limit burst damage. She already has a very simple rotation, right? You unlock your triple cast, you use Bolting Strike, it fills up your limit burst gauge by 20 crystals per Bolting Strike. You do it 3 times, gives you the 60 LB gauge crystals, then you limit burst again, and then you Bolting Strike, then you limit burst again, and then you Bolting Strike. All of that stuff for the general run-of-the-mill big damage sort of scenario. So let's go over her enhancements. The first enhancement here, Overcharge +2. It's going to increase her defense, spirit, and HP a little bit, 30% defense, HP, and spirit. It's going to make her immune to blind, confusion, to disease. That's very nice. It also gives her a 100% proc rate to ignore death as long as her HP is above 10%. So this is very strong as well. So a very strong enhancement here in and of its own right. Doesn't do anything to enhance her physical damage capabilities, but it is very nice to have your characters be a little more tanky. So let's take a look at something else here. To Magnetizing Strike, fully awakened here, Bolting Strike, okay, 120% lightning and peril added in there. The multiplier out of it goes up a little bit, but nothing all that great. She's, as a character, Esther isn't really known for doing damage outside of her limit burst. She does a little bit, but not a whole lot, right? Her multipliers are really old, and none of these multiplier increases do anything to really help her out, right? I think at the end of the day, with all the mods and stuff she gets, she's not pushing anywhere near like where the damage dealers that do chaining moves are nowadays. She's at like 20 something multipliers at most, like 19, 20, somewhere around there. We have people doing 30, 35, 40 multipliers because she's all about big limit burst damage. And a lot of these multiplier increases don't really do a whole lot for her. Now this 120% imperil, that's pretty cool, but she already had access to that with her cooldown skill. You could use this to put the 120% imperil back up in case the boss dispels itself or something. So that little bit of utility is there as well. The LB gauge does go up by a little bit more here with 20, so you can fit this in later on, right? If you need to put that imperil back up, instead of going Bolting Strike, Bolting Strike, Bolting Strike, you can go Bolting Strike, Bolting Strike, and a Demagnetizing Strike. Well, you put the Demagnetizing Strike first because it do the imperil again, and then you Bolting Strike 2 times, and that would get you the full 60 LB gauge crystals as well. So not a super exciting enhancement, but it does help her become a little more self-sufficient against bosses who like to dispel themselves. Pretty good enhancement. Combat Overdrive here, 250% attack buff for 5 turns to the caster, and then multiplier increases for her skills. It also enables Tempest Charge for 4 turns to the caster, which is going to be her triple cast skill. Honestly, this skill not that big of a deal because she already can get 250% attack buff from using her limit burst, which she's allowed to do. She also doesn't really care about these multiplier increases here to her other skills because she's all about doing limit burst damage. And Tempest Charge is her triple cast skill, and unless she dies or something, this shouldn't be going away anyway in the grand scheme of things. So it's an okay enhancement, but nothing really that really pushes her power, and it doesn't really do anything for her. The next one here is Ancient Figure. This is going to be her Trust Master reward passive. This one's pretty good, gives you a little bit more true double hand, gives you a little bit more LB damage here with 50% LB damage, attack and spirit, plus 50%, HP plus 30%. Something that's okay, but it's nothing like super crazy, right? She didn't get a whole bunch here. She went from 30% LB damage to 50%. She got some spirit here And that's about it, honestly, from this. She didn't get a whole lot in this Awakening, where most characters get a whole bunch of stuff. She didn't really get a whole lot. She got 20% additional limit burst damage and like some spirit. Super awesome, right? Then we have Shock Embrace, which is their other cooldown here. 5-turn cooldown, another 120% Imperil for herself here. Does give her 30 limit burst gauge crystals now instead of what it used to before, which I do believe was 20. It also gives her 3 stacks of Mirage, which is pretty nice. And this is her Lightning Imbue, Lightning Imperil. So this is a 120% Lightning Imperil with the Imbue. Her big cooldown, it's going to fill her limit burst gauge up. It's going to help her be tanky and surviving when she's starting to ramp up at the start of the fight, because this is the cooldown that you use to get ready to do a bunch of big limit burst damage. So this is a pretty good enhancement. You're ready to go here with this one, and you can combine this with something else on turn 1 as well. So the limit burst gauge here being plus 30, then you combine it with something else that gives like 20 or so limit burst gauge crystals on turn 1, like something like maybe Combat Overdrive. So you have that attack buff, and you're ready to fire limit burst off with that attack buff next turn. And you only need a couple more LB gauge crystals, right? Maybe like 5 or 10 more LB gauge crystals, which you can get. And then you're ready to go right away on turn 2, fire off that LB. And then we have Storm Clouds. The cooldown on this is reduced to turn 3, and it's a 3-turn cooldown now. It gives you 35 LB gauge crystals. Kind of really not necessary in the long term, right? Because you can Storm Clouds and triple cast 2 other things. So before it was 30, now it's 35. Doesn't really change a whole lot. The multiplier goes up. That's kind of cool. It gives a multiplier increase to Storm's Calling by 10 times. Not that big of a deal, and it's Absolute Mirror of Equity. This is one of Esther's least used skills. It's still Absolute Mirror of Equity for some reason, even though everything else she does is Bolting Strike. No idea why this skill is the way that it is. Doesn't really help her out in the long run. Then we have Bolting Strike itself here. Got buffed up the multiplier a little bit. Defense break still the same. Now gives you 25 limit burst gauge crystals instead of the traditional 20. This doesn't really help out, like we talked about, all that much, because she's known for triple casting Bolting Strike, which is 20 plus 20 plus 20, which is the 60 LB gauge crystals that her limit burst costed. Now it's 20 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25, which is 75 LB gauge crystals. This does help you out a little bit, right? If you want to combine this with Storm Cloud, which we just talked about, but that's an Absolute Mirror of Equity skill into a Bolting Strike skill. And then you have one other skill anyway that you can use to cap your LB gauge crystals out. So, okay, I guess. Nothing all that great, but it will help you fill your LB gauge up a little bit faster using her cooldown skill that now gives 30, because you have 30 on turn 1, plus 25 that puts you at 55, so you need 5 more to use your LB on turn 2, so 5 LB gauge crystals from passives or whatever have you, and you're good to go. Then we have Precursor of the Storm plus 2, which is going to give you 50% attack, 30% HP and MP now, 60% attack with a great sword, as well as 20% defense and spirit. It's going to upgrade that limit burst. Yeah, that's super awesome. I know, it's the biggest part about her. It gives her 50% more true double hand attack, and that's pretty much all this does. So it's going to upgrade the limit burst. The best part about her, this is what's going to make or break Esther for you. And let's look at this final upgraded limit burst, upgraded by this new passive. It goes from a 14 mod, ignore 50% defense skill, to a 14 mod, ignore 50% defense skill. It still unlocks Tempest Charge for 3 turns. Oh, the LB damage has gone from 35% to 50%. A 15% LB damage upgrade. Still is a 250% attack buff. These effects can't be dispelled now. I guess that's a good thing. But she didn't really get her LB upgraded that much. In a day and age now where we have characters with 40 times mod LBs, this doesn't do anything for her really. It's 50. What is this? 15% more LB damage. This is nothing. This is nothing at all. So she really does not actually do all that much. She didn't really get upgraded. Usually we get characters when they get upgrades, the ones that we talk about that are super good, worth going for. She's not one of those characters, right? When Tifa got brought up and was really good, not like the top of the meta, but Esther, you can still use her for sure, but she didn't really get brought up all that much. She's still below the vast majority of units we've gotten, even a couple in months and months and months ago. So not really worthwhile in my opinion. She's not going to give you all that much power. If you're an Esther fan, go ahead, yeah, upgrade her. Use the units that you like and use the units that you enjoy for sure. But if you are asking me, is she going to be better than any of the units that I've gotten in the past, 4 or 5 months? No, she's not going to be. If you've gotten anything from like Eldor, King Rain onward, she's just not better. She's just not better than them, right? Radiant Lightning, just not better than them. She's just not. It's just not worth your materials. She's just not worth it. She still has the same multiplier. She's like got the same limit burst multiplier as like 2B, who hasn't seen or been touched for like a year and a half, 2 years now. So She's got a really old limit burst multiplier. They didn't change it at all. And the limit burst damage plus 15% on that buff, not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. Now, lastly but leastly, not leastly, excuse me, is Sylvie. And I think out of all of these ones, these enhancements are the best ones because Sylvie really didn't need that many changes. She was still the Swiss Army knife of supports, and she still is. Now she's just Swissier. She's even more Swissier of an army knife. Isn't that crazy? Let's talk about Sylvie here real quick for you guys with all of the stuff that she did get. So Sylvie, jack of all trades, master of all trades temporarily. All right, she's going to be able to mastering some trades a little bit more than she was before. So we have Withering Arms and Withering Guard. This is her attack and magic and defense and spirit breaks. These are brought up to 65% for 4 turns. So not like the top echelon, right? 70% on demand breaks or anything of that nature. But this is 65. You can get by with 65% breaks. You ideally would like a better break on your team, but it's not like do or die, right? So you could get by with this if you want to. I would still have a 70%, 74%, 80% breaker running around in my team if I had to choose between the two of them, but she does offer more than just breaks. She's not really a breaker. That's the weakest thing that she does as a role. She can do it temporarily with her cooldown skills, and we'll get to those. They get buffed up. But she can fulfill the breaker role a little bit better than she used to. Now we have growing offense and growing defense here. These got brought up by a lot. The +2 versions, they start out as 160% buff, so growing offense is 160% attack and magic buff, and it lasts for 4 turns, and it cannot be dispelled. It also gives 150% high tide buff for 4 turns as well. But 2 turns after you cast it, it's going to automatically cast a 180% version of the skill for 2 turns. So you get a 4-turn 160 and then a 2-turn 180. What that honestly actually means is that it's 2 turns 160% and then 2 turns 180% that's going to cast automatically for you. So it's a growing offense buff. All right, the defense thing is the same thing, except it's defense and spirit 160% that turns into 180% defense and spirit. This one also applies an HP barrier instead of the high tide, and it will apply that HP barrier 2 times. So you get the 160% defense and spirit, then 2 turns later 180% defense and spirit, and then it's going to automatically put that HP barrier on there for you as well. So it's going to help mitigate a little bit of damage on top of that upgraded buff automatically for you. Now we have protective vines and protective petals. These are her mitigations to physical and magical damage. These are brought up to 30% each, so she has 30% physical mitigation and 30% magic mitigation. And when you cast these two, as well as putting on the mitigation, it's going to heal your whole party for 5,000 HP, which isn't a ton, but she's going to be able to triple cast pretty much 100% of the time, starting on turn 1 and just go triple cast. So if you have any other skills that you don't really need to be using, right, you're trying to find something else to do, she can actually supplement your healer quite well with these heals, right? If you don't have anything to do with her, you can triple cast this protective petals and protective vines, re-put up your mitigations and heal for 15,000 HP because this is part of her triple cast. Or you can fit these in, maybe use one of your buffs and use these, heal for 10,000, something of that nature. And she does have HP and MP regen as well, so you can have her not really be your main healer, but you can have her like side heal with some other characters too, to like let your healers do some other things and she can pick up the slack, right? Like I said, jack of all trades, master of all of them temporarily, because she's not really going to be able to keep this healing up because she's got other stuff to do in your party. So her trust ability here all pinned up. You can level this up and you're going to want to. It's going to make her even tankier for you. 150% high tide, 50% HP and MP, 30% defense and spirit, 30% resistance to all elements, and auto cast all pinned up +2 at the start of the battle. Hop into battle is her cooldown skill. This is going to give you a 300% attack and magic buff for 3 turns to a single ally, and it can't be dispelled. This is also going to defense and spirit break your enemies for 3 turns by 70%, and then it's going to unlock your triple cast now for 4 turns instead of 2 turns. So this is going to allow you to really get those big stats in there while doing that temporary break, and then it's going to allow you to start triple casting a whole bunch. Likely, I don't know if likely is the right way to go into this one, but Hop to the Rescue is the other one, which is her defense and spirit buff. This also goes up to 300% for 3 turns to 1 ally, and it is the 8 or 70% attack and magic break for 3 turns to all enemies. And this also unlocks triple the fun for 4 turns to the caster. So this is going to be triple casting everywhere. It's going to be fantastic. And then speaking of triple cast, all right, we have Marion watch over me. The cooldown on this got reduced to 9 turns instead of what it used to be, and it's going to be a 100% attack, defense, magic, and spirit break resist for 5 turns to your party, a 200% can't be dispelled attack, defense, magic, and spirit buff for your whole party there as well. So the buff got better. It used to be like 170, now it's 200. Can't be dispelled in the last 5 turns, and then it unlocks your triple cast for 6 turns. All right, then all pinned up, which we talked about before, from her trustability unlock, is going to give you the triple cast starting turn 1. So if you're using these skills in the right order, the right ways, you spread them out a couple of turns, right? You have like 6 turns of triple cast from one of the cooldown skills, 4 turns of triple cast from one of the other cooldown skills, and then finally another 4 turns of triple cast from the last skill. So you can juggle these around a tiny bit. You don't need to juggle them around crazy. Like you could use 1 and then 1 and then 1, and you'll last long enough, depending on the order you use them in, to get back around to Marion watch over me to get 6 more turns of triple casting there at your discretion. So she's going to start triple casting on turn 1, and this is a big change for her because her W cast was kind of not the greatest thing. Remember, her triple cast allows her to mix and match any of her skills, period. Whereas her double cast, she had 2 different double casts, one for like her imbues and stuff of that nature, and one for like her defensive oriented buffs and breaks and things of that nature. So now you'll be able to triple cast on turn 1, use Marion watch over me, double imbue if you want to. You can imbue one person, put up your buffs, put up an elemental resistance thing, whatever it is that you want to do. You can be able to do that with Sylvie, and she's gonna be able to do it a lot in a long time. Her LB didn't get upgraded or anything, but it's still the 75% all elemental resistance for your whole party, the 3.5k HP barrier. So she didn't really change that much in function. The biggest change to her is that she's going to be able to triple cast all the time, basically, and if not 100% of the time, because you need to do all those really strong things all at the same time, 6 turns in a row instead of 2, which is super crazy. It's a huge change for Sylvie, and if you just leave out one of those cooldown skills, you're going to be pretty much permanently triple casting the entire time. She'll be able to mix and match, and now she can do some supplemental healing for yourself, bigger buffs, all that good stuff. I think she's a fantastic character, and then on top of that, she's a very, very prime candidate for a 100% draw attack, 100% evasion character, because she's very tanky. I have her built this way right now, and she's fantastic in that way, right? With the right gear, you can get her very tanky, like almost 1,000 spirit, like almost 20k HP, 100% draw attack, 100% dodge. So she's taking a little bit of magic damage because she's got some decent spirit, and then on top of that, she's doing all these supportive things for you. And she can heal supplementally for you as well. So you can even heal herself for the little bit of magic damage that she takes, and don't even have to care all that much. So that's very, very strong in the long run. So very cool character. That's definitely a character to think about upgrading in this batch. If there was any of the 3 characters I would upgrade, it would definitely be Sylvie, and I have been using her quite a lot in content in Brave Exvius. So thank you guys once again for spending a little bit of your time here today. If you want to see more stuff like this on this channel, go ahead, drop that like, leave a comment. It helps out so much when you do that. I want to hear about which of these characters you decided to enhance, if any at all, and which one you're upset about. But thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, especially those of you via Patreon, as well as the YouTube channel members out there. You guys help out so much, you don't even have any idea. And if you want to see more stuff like this, subscription button right there, hit that notification button, and hopefully 1 like for 1 really good latent ability upgrade for Esther. And until then, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.